Before we start an action, let's remind ourselves if you have ever had any connection with frequency separation, how does it look like and what is it all about. If you know about already frequency separation, how we create this and some theory behind that, you can move on to the next lesson. But anyway, I would recommend you to stay here because maybe there will be some important information you could find. In frequency separation, we split our image for two separate layers, and these two separate layers contains different information. One is color of the image, so the skin color in this case, and lip color. Also, the other layer contains the texture information, so all of the details. What we need to do when we separate this, it's way easier to retouch, because on one layer we just retouch in details, and on the other layer we can retouch the colors. Let's start. To do this, first of all, we have to duplicate our background layer. I'm pressing Ctrl or Command and J to do this. In the case of using actions, and maybe to get the better habit for you, I would not recommend you to copy this, because often you have some other layers above this layer. So let's say we have some group here. So then we cannot copy our background layer. What we do then, we press Alt or Option, Control or Command, Shift and E to create a stamp on the top. So that's our first step in working with frequency separation. Then what I want to do, I want to duplicate this layer, because as you remember, we have to have two layers. This one I'm going to call low, FS, like frequency separation, and the other one will be high. Okay, we have two layers. What's now? We're going back to the low layer, and the thing we have to do in frequency separation, low layer, we're going to blur out a little bit, because this layer is responsible for the colors and not for details, so we don't want to see the small details on this layer. What I'm going to do, I'm going to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. I'm finding the point where I'm blurring out just enough to not see the details. So in this case would be around that. And do not look at me, look at your image. Remember this, but of course you will get an action. So I will apply this information so you will be sure what to apply. So hit OK. And now go to high frequency layer. I know it might look complicated, but it's only for you to make sure that you know what is happening when you're going to apply the action that I'm going to give you. In high frequency layer, I'm going to image, apply image, and this layer will be about details. There's two kind of image, 8-bit image, which will be normal JPEG image, and 16-bit image. If you start working with raw image, it will be 16-bit. So we have two kinds. Source, everything is the same layer, will be low frequency, because that's our source that we work. Blending, I'm working on 16-bit image, will be add. If you're working on 8-bit image, will be subtract. You will know this. In the case of add, scale will be 2, offset 0, that's always the same values, and this checkbox will be inverted. If you add subtract, as you can see, so if you work with 8-bit image, scale will be 2, offset 1, 28, and this won't be checked. So that's all about theory. Here you are. Now, on the high frequency layer, we need to change this into linear light. I'm going to put this to the group. Let's call this FS. And here's our image. Why it looks exactly the same as our image? The reason is because it's exactly our image. However, we split this for two separate layers, so this layer and this layer connected contains exactly the same information as our original image. What I'm doing usually using frequency separation is creating a layer in between, and I'm going to call this tones. Why I'm doing this? Because in between the work has really nice value. We can work with the colors, paint between, and not affect the texture of the skin, because the texture is on the top layer. Okay, that's enough of talking. Let's remove this. I can remove this group as well, and let's open our actions. Window, actions, and I have somewhere here this action. I have a 16-bit, and I'm going to play this. And as I said before, I applied something. I applied the information. That's something you can also apply in creating actions. In Gaussian blur dialog, choose radius that blurs out the skin texture. Remember that radius will be different for each image. So what I said before, continue. That was a bit too much. I'm going to pull it down to the similar value as before, and OK. And that will be our basic frequency separation action. We're not going to work on it yet, because first of all, I need to show you how I recorded this action, how to apply the text, and then we can work on it. And after this, I will be able to show even more advanced frequency separation action. For now, I can tell you on the high frequency layer, we retouch in all of the spots, and below that, we work with the tones.